So she had a friend next to her that she was pretty sure was already dead and was laying on the ground bleeding out. And she put her hands in her friend's blood and then smeared it, she said, all over her body. She wanted to look like she was dead. She was scared that the gunman was going to come back through that adjoining door back into the classroom, and she wanted to be able to play dead.
That is a reporter for CNN talking about her experience interviewing an 11-year-old victim in this week's most recent school shooting. Mia Cirillo talking about what she did to stay alive as, and we'll get to this, the cops waited for quite some time to actually clear that room. Mia, by the way, started off her day watching the movie Lilo and Stitch in the classroom. And within a very short period of time was being forced to camouflage herself with the blood of a friend of hers who had already been killed. So look, this is the devastating part of this where we get to learn about the experiences of these kids, what through our inaction we forced onto them. They're now going to bear the psychological torment for the rest of their lives. And we will discuss it so that we can understand, and perhaps with sort of a side dish of a vain hope that maybe some of this will get through, that any of the politicians or media figures who don't give a damn about any of this will be bludgeoned by the shame of not caring about the experiences of people like me. And we'll learn more about their experiences into actually doing something, although we've been through this many times before.
I actually thought of a ray of hope for potential change. I'm gonna get to that in a second. But first, the bad guys. So the Ted Cruzes, the Mitch McConnells, the Ron Johnsons of the world see that and think, yeah, no, I still want my check. I don't care that my constituents, in the case of Ted Cruz, their kids have to smear themselves in their dead friend's blood to be able to survive. Yeah, but I got $442,000 from the gun lobby. Ron Johnson got $1.2 million from the NRA. Donald Trump, or through the 2 elections, got help to the tune of about $50 million. So Donald Trump, of course, going to speak to the NRA and congratulating them. Great job on murdering our kids. I'm not gonna hold back on anything. Republicans are monsters and they're definitely responsible for this. They have pushed for no gun control at all. This is the direct result of no gun control, and it is inarguable. Every nation on earth protects its civilians and protects its kids. This happens nowhere else on the planet, only here. Why? There's only one difference between us and the rest of the world. We have no gun control because we are lunatics, and our system is completely a criminal. Yes, I think all of those Republican senators are criminals who take bribes from this industry. We all know it. The only people stopping us from saying it is mainstream media, who shame you when you tell the truth. Those things are obvious. You know, we used to kid around about how Ted Cruz was the Zodiac killer. Well, are you sure the Zodiac killer has gotten more people killed? So there's more horrifying stories about the kids and how they saved themselves. We're gonna get to that as well, and I'm gonna save the hope for the end here, but go ahead, Jessica.
Yeah, I think Miguel Cirillo, the father of this young girl, said something really interesting. He said later that night, his daughter came up to him and said, you know, he's coming to get us, talking about the shooter from the school. And she asked her father to get his gun. And I've been reflecting a lot about gun culture in the United States, and there's a huge divide in gun culture. I use guns for safety. I was in the range recently shooting a Glock 17, which is a personal safety handgun. And 2 lanes down, someone was firing a fully automatic weapon. And it made very clear the divide in this country. For some people, guns are used for fun. They're on the offensive. They use guns because they like the power they represent, and they're upholding the power they already have. And for so many other people, it's about being on the defensive because you're felt to be unsafe in this country because these other people threaten you. It's a response to the threat. And this situation right after the shooting with the Cirillo family really paints that picture really well of what the divide is and where toxic gun culture lies in this country.
Yeah, I think you're right about people feeling defensive. I mean, I get messages even from people on the left saying, well, I'm with you, but at this point, I guess I have to get a gun since nothing is gonna be done, since no right winger will come out and say that they wish that this mass murderer had been less well armed. Like so well armed that, as we're gonna get to, an entire squad of cops are terrified to go up against the firearms that they will not block people from having. It's amazing. And then it's unleashed on these kids. So we're gonna give you a little bit more of the experience of Mia after camouflaging herself in the blood of her dead friend. She tries to reach out to the people that she has been convinced might be able to help, as you'll see in this video.
She and a friend went and were able to take the phone off of one of the teachers who had already been killed. And they called 911 and they were actually able to make contact with the dispatcher. And they talked to a dispatcher for a little while and told them what was going on inside. And Mia kept saying, telling me that she kept saying, we're in trouble, like please come, please come.
So she was terrified, and she did the only thing that she was told she was supposed to do, which was reach out to an authority figure. Now, as you already know, if you've been tracking this story, the help was not quick in coming, and she actually was forced to grapple with this. We're gonna go to one more clip, and you'll see what she has to say about that.
She said she thought the police just hadn't gotten there yet, that somehow they just weren't there yet. And she said, she'd been pretty stoic up until this point in the interview. And this was actually when she started getting emotional and started crying. She said, I heard the grown-ups later say the police were outside and that they weren't coming in. And she got emotional talking to me about this and said, why didn't they come in? Why didn't they save us? Why the police were outside? Like, she just like couldn't, it was clear in her 11-year-old brain, in my brain, why they wouldn't come in and help and save her.
Yeah, she was absolutely dumbfounded about that. Now she's an 11-year-old, she is a child, but she in that moment felt, I think, quite a bit like all of us are feeling. Why was it that it took so long? Why were the cops just standing by doing nothing? And that's the crisis that we're gonna focus on in the show, and that as a nation we'll talk about this week. But look, at the end of the day, those cops who didn't want to actually deal with this issue, are they really any worse than the politicians who won't do anything? The media figures that defend them, those who are bought by the industry, as Cenk was talking about? Like, there are a lot of people who in one way or another were just standing around that school, not protecting those kids.
Yeah, I alluded to this yesterday, but I really want to read it for you guys because Jonathan Larson, our managing editor at TYT, had such a great tweet about what John just said. He said, I don't think congressional Democrats understand that voters see them as the cops standing around outside the school. And that's exactly right. And so now remember, the Republicans are not standing around outside. In that analogy, they're basically the shooters. So they're the ones saying no gun control ever. We all took our bribes. We all serve the gun industry. We don't care about the dead kids at all. They're saying that in unison. They're shouting it from the rooftops. We're gonna show you clips later in the show. None of them want any gun control or anything done. They don't, Republicans, it's a matter of fact. They don't care about dead kids. Their plan is to do nothing. You do nothing when you think, nailed it, this looks good. This is what good looks like to the Republican Party. Now the Democrats go, no, this is bad, it's really bad, right? But we're gonna stand around and do nothing. Schumer declared the next day, I swear to God I won't pass any laws. What a weakling, what an absurd coward. And then they went on vacation, they're all on vacation now. Your kids are dead and all the politicians are on vacation and the cops are standing outside. It is this, what you're seeing is an awful, awful symptom of the larger disease, which is that the powerful don't care about us. They've already rigged the system 100% to their own benefit. And it's so brazen that even when we have kids who have died and smeared blood on themselves to save themselves, they still say, no, we love the system exactly as it is. Even when it kills your kids, we don't care. We're not gonna change it 1%. Everything I've said is an indisputable fact. So this is the sick, sick country we now live in. It's nowhere near a democracy. 88% of Americans in a poll that just came out, 88% of Americans want federal background checks, including in the overwhelming majority of Republicans. Yet Republican politicians don't care even about their own voters. They say, who cares about my voters? The only thing they care about is, where's that donor money? Because they're all sick criminals.
And the one piece of legislation that has potential to pass universal background checks. HR 1446 has been voted down by the Senate 3 times, and it's just been reintroduced. And what do? They go on vacation until the 6th. It's unbelievable how little they're doing, and how these very young children who look up to adults to keep them safe, to bring them into the world, and they don't have anyone helping them or coming to save them. We look to the police because many people assume the police are there to protect us. Turns out they absolutely are not, and we're gonna get into that in a second. But it's just sad to think about, as human beings, this is what our children are thinking. No one's coming to save me when I'm in a situation where I'm unsafe. What do I do?
Yeah, and I know that like right now as we're filming this, the NRA has their convention going on in Texas, and there's at least something like 1,000 people outside. And I'm so happy that they are doing that. Of course, they can't achieve it by themselves. They're hoping that someone is gonna come to help them. They're dealing with the crisis. We're talking about a crisis. The crisis was the shooting, but people watching this need to understand that from the point of view of the right, that wasn't the crisis. The crisis is that, come on, it's been a couple of days and you guys are still talking about this. You're still asking me questions about this. Ted Cruz might have a Sky News reporter come up to him and ask inconvenient questions that he doesn't want to have to talk about. That is the crisis. The crisis is, how do I get to when we aren't talking about this shooting anymore? And they thought that they had made it right up until this shooting. We weren't talking about Buffalo, it had sort of tailed off. They doubled down on great replacement theory, and now everything was just back to normal. And now there's this, and they're just checking their watches. Is it another day? Is it, hey, it's a 3-day weekend coming up. Whew. That it was really looking like something might happen, but people will probably forget by then. The joke, I guess, is on them, because in America, we're gonna have multiple mass shootings between now and then. The only question, the only dice roll really is, will it get national pickup? Whichever place around America gets shot up over the weekend, will it actually get national coverage?
Yeah, honestly, before the Uvalde shooting, there was a story that we didn't do, I think it was last Friday, of 3 different shootings at high school graduations across the country on the same day. But we thought that that was too normal in America. Like in any other country, 1 high school graduation shooting would be the largest story in the country. For us, 3 on the same day, not even interesting. That's normal. Massacres are perfectly normal in America. Ted Cruz the other day said, "Oh, people are still coming here, best country on earth." Based on what? What are you citing a study? What are you citing? What are you talking about, best country on earth? Look, honestly, like a friend of mine asked me a while back, about a year ago, I'm thinking of going to Turkey, and there's a little bit of trouble in the Middle East. There's always a little bit of trouble in the Middle East. Do you think it's safe, right? I said, what are you talking about? It's infinitely safer than America. If you stay in your own neighborhood in America, your chance of getting shot is so much higher than if you're in a random Middle Eastern country. That's not even close to arguable. There's statistics, there's facts. No, this place is a war zone. There's literally war style, military style assault weapons in almost everybody's hands. And the cops have tons of AR-15s, they're standing outside doing absolutely nothing. And so our kids are massacred on a weekly basis. Look, there's a mass shooting, which is 4 people shot or more every single day in America. So I'm not at all exaggerating. It's Massacre Incorporated, brought to you by the gun industry. And again, our politicians do absolutely nothing. So I'm going to last things here on, first on Biden. A bunch of reporters today asked this White House spokesperson about how Biden is doing nothing. I think it's a perfectly legitimate question. What the hell is he doing? He's on vacation. I mean, he's going to go down to Texas, but it's all empty, empty, empty words. He's proposing nothing. He's going to do nothing. It's Biden. His specialty is nothing. But in the midst of 3 questions in a row, Kristen Welker asked, I think she's from NBC, she asked, well, Biden promised to bring Republicans and Democrats together. Why isn't he doing that on this issue? No, come on. Nobody's that stupid. What kind of an insane question is that? Mind you, it's Biden's fault for saying something so preposterous, right? Oh, the fever's gonna break and I'm gonna work with the Republicans. Are you that stupid? I'm asking a legitimate question. Is the president of the United States that stupid that he thinks the Republicans would work with a Democratic president? That is a super legitimate question. Every reporter should ask him that. But instead, they're asking him, Why haven't you gotten why don't you get the Republicans to work with you? Kristen Welker, you're a White House correspondent. You don't know the Republicans have voted no on every single one of these bills. It's absolutely impossible to move their blood-drenched hands into voting yes on gun control. So you make it seem like it's the Democrats' fault that the Republicans are monsters? Look, can you tell from this show that we can't stand Democrats? We can't stand Democratic leadership. We think they're impotent and incompetent. But to blame them for what Republicans did, and they do it and why do they do it? Why do they do it? Because they want to protect Republicans. Hey, everything's 50-50. I can't tell who's at fault. The powerful are wonderful, and so we're in the powerful incumbent protection racket in mainstream media. So golly gee, why didn't Biden get these murderous Republicans to work with him? Because they're murderous Republicans. Because they take bribes. Hey, by the way, all the White House correspondents, wakey, it's the frickin' money. Are you all stupid? I'm serious. It's a serious question. Are you all stupid? Why don't you all ask every single senator that takes money from the NRA and gun lobby, isn't it the money? Ron Johnson, you took $1.2 million. Isn't it obviously the bribe that you took that leads you to these actions? Really, you're a reporter and you don't know to ask the most relevant question? Come on, our press corps is a joke, an absolute sick joke. So last thing, I promised you hope in the midst of all of this, the only thing that could ever move anything in this country is a major Republican losing. It hardly ever happens, and I'm not sure that it's gonna happen in this case. In fact, I'd be a little to a lot surprised if it happened. But if Beto O'Rourke, who was one of the very, very rare Democrats who was aggressively for gun control, beats Greg Abbott in Texas, that will be a sea change in American politics. Because then the message will be, oh my God, even Republicans could even lose in Texas because they didn't do any gun control. And then all of a sudden, all those little rats, the little scurrying politicians, where's power, where's power, where's power? Oh no, I might lose my power, it's about me. Oh, you're dead because I never cared, but it's about me. I might lose my power. And then all of a sudden, Ted Cruz might think about gun control. Why? Because it's about his sorry ass. So look, I got no love for Democrats, but if you're in Texas, vote against Greg Abbott, the monster Greg Abbott that has allowed all this, and you might send a booming message to the rest of the country.
I think Jake raises a few good points, especially about when we think about what a good country is. America, calling it the best country in the world, and people questioning, well, is going to another country safe? When I think about what makes a country good or a society good, it's definitely not people killing each other. And people always point to, well, we have really fancy cars and really fancy buildings and everyone has iPhones. That's not the mark of a good society to me. It's people having resources, people living good lives, people not murdering each other in the streets. And it would also involve a functioning democracy, and nothing paints the picture of a dysfunctional democracy as well as the data that now 88% of people support universal background checks, but time and again it's voted down pretty much 50-50, Republicans pushing it over the margin.
Yeah, and I would only throw out another poll that I saw today. It was on an assault weapons ban, and I believe it was 51% approval, like 32% disapproval. So almost 2-to-1 supporting it versus not. When we are told, no, you're crazy, that's the most controversial thing. Everybody loves assault rifles, we can never get rid of them. They're not even gonna try to. That's not on the table, but you should know what the truth is.
Thanks for watching the Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.